You know how this goes, right? I'm not sure I do. From the studio, in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Fort Mill, South Carolina, in the shadow of Charlotte, the buckle of the Bible Belt, the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the York County Democratic Party's YouTube show, podcast. We call it YCDP-TV. Welcome to episode 16. We're going to call this Voting in York County. I often do enigmatic titles. This title is clear as a bell, Voting in York County. Okay. And if I ever say Wake County during the program, I lived in Wake County, Raleigh area for 30 years, and it's in my brain.
Okay, I believe 30 years, that's a long time.
Yeah. So I'm Gary Pearce, your YCDP-TV media mogul, and with me is our new-ish, I guess, YCDP chair, Nikita Jackson. Nikita, I feel like I'm welcoming you into your own house. This is the party show. I've just been keeping the seat warm for you here.
Well, thank you, Gary. I can say you're truly doing a good job of keeping the seat warm for us.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to having you on as often as you can be, and all the other people in the party as well. So I'm looking forward to
we're looking forward to it as well, and we're glad to have this new platform to educate and talk about what's going on with politics right here in York County.
Yeah, it's a good thing they invented television, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, wait a minute. They did that a long time ago. Well, it's a good thing they invented YouTube. All right, so let's get right to it because we got a lot of stuff to cover, and I want to keep this as short as we can. The next elections in York County are going to be the presidential primaries.
That's correct.
Yeah, 2024 South Carolina presidential primary calendar is, to my mind, it's confusing. It was just, I think, around Thanksgiving when I realized there's two primaries, and then there's another one in June. So what have we got on the primary calendar?
You know, Gary, let's not flood or overwhelm people too soon, but the first upcoming primary, as you stated already, is the presidential preference primary, and that's going to take place for the whole state of South Carolina, which is actually on February the 3rd. But as we know, there's something called early voting, and so we're going to have the opportunity to have early voting that's going to begin really soon. It's right around the corner on January the 22nd. People can go to their early voting locations to cast their vote in the Democratic primaries. Yep. As you stated, there are two. There's the Democratic and then there's the Republican, and they're both on two separate days.
Yeah.
And time periods.
Republicans on the end of the month, the 24th. And correct. I was interested to note, and I just learned this today, they're both on Saturday. I've been dealing with the dates, but I never looked up the day. It's on Saturday, not Tuesday. Kind of expect Tuesday.
Yeah, most people do expect, but, you know, this primary is on a Saturday. So we hope that people who are taking care of their Saturday duties, that they will find time to step away, because you're going to need a break from those Saturday work to do this, right? So you can spend that time to go and cast your vote.
Yeah, but as you said, there's early voting as well, and we got details and all that coming up in just a little bit. The third primary of the year is going to be in June. That'll be on a Tuesday, June 11th, and that's for all the other offices. So we're just talking about presidents, and I think we'll stick with the presidential stuff for this show, and we'll get to the other stuff. We'll do another show later on. Okay, everybody's wondering what's the other stuff. So the other stuff that is going to be in June, just to get it out of the way so you know what's going on, it's not governor.
That's correct.
Not any other executive officers.
Correct.
What else?
Well, basically, it's going to be for the Congress, the U.S. House, and the state House and the state Senate.
Okay, so not the U.S. Senate. We're not electing any U.S. senators.
Nope, that's every 6 years.
Yep. And here in York County, not the county council.
No.
And not any mayors, and not any town councils.
Nope, none of that.
We just got done with that.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so U.S. House and the state house and state senate. And I understand some school board elections are coming up.
That is correct. Yeah.
I think that's about it. So in this show, here's what I want to do. Excuse me. Election day, we'll tell you the dates. Well, we told you the dates, and we'll get the locations. The early voting, the absentee voting, that's vote by mail. We'll talk about voter registration. It's too late to register as a Democrat for the presidential primary.
That is correct.
You're too late. If you're not registered now, you're too late. You could register, and vote in the Republican primary.
We don't want that. We don't want that. But Gary, you can still register to vote anytime. But to just be able to vote in the upcoming election, presidential primary, you're not. But we have all those other elections that's coming up, so people can take advantage of those voting time, election time then.
Yeah, get her done now. Just while you're thinking about it, get it done. We'll talk about who can vote, and we'll talk about what you need to vote. So let's get started. Oh, by the way, I'm pulling most of our information from the York County Democratic Party's website. Our brand new website, yorkscdems.org. This is what our website looks like, and particularly from this page that is called Voting in York County. So if you need a backup, you need a backstop for everything that we tell you here, all that information is going to be on that website. You don't have to remember or write down everything we're saying. You can go to the website and find out. YorkSCDems.org is not particularly easy to remember, so we've got two other addresses that will go to the same place. YCDP.us and York County Democratic Party.org. That's a lot of typing, but that may be the easiest of all to remember.
Because it has our name in it, right where you are, right here in York County.
Yeah, so York County Democratic Party.org will get you to the website. YCDP.us will get you there, or the original, what's been there for years, YorkSCDems.org, which I don't know, I could never remember. I caught this when you did your interview on WRHI with Manning Kimmel.
Yes, I do.
And at the very end, he said, "What's your website?" And you go, and you said YorkCountyDemocraticParty.org, and I said, "That's not our website." I immediately went to my web registrar and grabbed that. It was available, grabbed it, stuck it on there, and turned you from being wrong into being right.
Thank you. That's good to have you on the team, make it right when quoting things incorrectly. But, like you say, we have a new website that everyone can go to. And so, hey, they got the best of both worlds.
Yep. All those addresses, they take you to the same place. Doesn't matter.
That's right.
Which one you put in. All right. So let's really get started and figure out who can vote in York County. Because, if you can't vote, we're wasting your time. You go watch some other YouTube show. Well, we're going to be entertaining. You can keep watching us. And at some point, maybe you'll be able to vote, and this will work out for you.
So anyone who is a U.S. citizen over the age of 18 by election day, and you're a South Carolina resident in the county and precinct in which you're registering, and you can vote. You can't be under any type of order declaring you mentally incompetent. You can't be in prison following a conviction. If you've been convicted, and this is the one, Gary, that when we were out knocking on doors, this is one of the ones that we had to talk about quite often, because a lot of people thought that because they went to jail or served time in prison, that they couldn't vote. But that is incorrect. If you have been convicted of a felon or offense against in the election law, you must have served your entire sentence, including probation and parole, and you have received pardon from your conviction. You can still become a registered voter. All you have to do is submit your information to become a registered voter here in South Carolina, the state of South Carolina, and York County.
So if you've done your time, you get your privilege to vote comes back.
That's right. Well, at least that's how it's supposed to be. You've done your time, so everything is free for all, register to vote. And I will say, when we were knocking on doors, a couple of years ago, we did have some young people who realized that, hey, I'm a registered voter now, all because they went through the process. They were so used to somebody telling them they couldn't, that they didn't think they could. But when we got out and started educating, the community about what you can and can't do, it made a world of a difference.
And I don't have anything about registering ready for our show here, but I guess we can point out that most people get registered when they get their driver's license. I know I moved here about 3 years ago. And at the DMV, as I was getting my driver's license for South Carolina, they asked me if I wanted to register to vote. And of course I said yes. And so I did.
Yeah, that's how most people do become registered voters. I wish there was a way when these students turn 18 years old in high school that we can go ahead and give them a voter registration form and have them to go ahead and register once they turn 18. But I guess state of South Carolina figured everybody who's a registered driver should or can have the opportunity to become a registered voter when they go through that process.
Yeah, I guess that's a point. You can get your driver's license at 16.
Yeah.
And they're not going to ask you to register to vote because you're too young. So you young whippersnappers out there, you got to catch up.
Yeah.
Us old folks, when we've been through the process at DMV, we got registered. So kids.
Yeah, I know when I turned 18, my parents made sure that I became a registered voter. So
yeah,
that was a push in our household.
If you have a driver's license, you can register to vote online. You don't have to go in to do anything else.
That is correct. You can go to scvotes.org. Everybody has a computer in their hand now, walking around with all these phones, and so it's as easy as going online using your phone. I actually had this conversation with somebody on yesterday because they asked the question, well, do we have to do it by paper now? No, you don't. All you have to do is go to the SC Votes website, and you can register yourself to vote that way. Simple and easy and quick. Right. I tell people it's as quick as logging onto Facebook and strolling Facebook.
If you can see us, you have the technology to register to vote.
That is correct.
Yep. You've got to be registered no less than 30 days before an election, which is why it's too late to vote for the Democratic presidential primary, because that would have been January 3rd. You would have been done by that, and it's after that now. So, but if you're not registered, get in gear. Go get her done. Right. Let's review the election dates again. These are the day of election. We're not going to talk about early voting quite yet. Just the day of. Democrats is Saturday, February 3rd, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'll tell you where in a minute. You get to tell them when the Republicans get to vote.
Well, thank you for that, Gary. The Republican primary is Saturday, February the 24th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And nope, it's not on a Tuesday. It's on a Saturday, as we stated already.
Yeah. And pretty much the only reason that we need to tell you about the Republican primary is if you're absorbing media, the radio stations, the TV stations don't pay any attention to us. They're up in Charlotte. If you're picking up media like that, you're going to hear about the Republican primary. Once we're done with the Democratic primary, you're going to be hearing about the Republican primary and saying, wait, what? I got to vote again? No.
No.
It's it's because they're on different dates. Why are they on different dates?
They're on two separate days because the DNC wanted to go first. We wanted to be first to elect who we would like to see on the Democratic ticket for president. And so that's why. That's one reason why.
Yeah.
And they say to save money.
Yep. Well, DNC said, let's make South Carolina first in the nation. It had been Iowa and New Hampshire. And the DNC said, I think if I understand this correctly, they said South Carolina is much more representative of the cross section of the party, much more diverse. And we sort of deserve to be early in the process. And it probably didn't hurt at all when Jim Clyburn kind of boosted Joe Biden into being the nominee.
And that is correct. That is correct. And that's something that I've talked about before, but South Carolina has always been instrumental or in voting for who the president is. A lot of presidents were groomed down here in the South. So it was very important that we do, we take our mark and move up because of how effective we are in this whole process.
Yeah. And we had been fairly early, but they bumped us up a little bit. Republicans are sticking with their traditional calendar. They've already been through Iowa. They're going to New Hampshire next. But we are, okay, it's a little squirrely because we are first in the nation, sort of. And we'll talk about this first in the nation thing in a little bit. Iowa's already done their Democratic caucus. I learned this kind of, getting down to paragraph 55 in the news stories. Iowa's already done. They voted before we did. But, you heard the Republican primary stuff. It was all on the news in the past couple of days.
Yes.
They were not talking about the Democrats because the Democrats, although they voted, it was all by mail. And they have not released the results, and they're not going to release the results until we're done.
That's right.
So they're not really first. New Hampshire said, we're going to go first. We're still going to go first. We don't care what the DNC said. We're still going to go first. The New Hampshire Democrats said, we don't care. And so Joe Biden said, well, I do care. And he did not file to be on the ballot in New Hampshire. So as far as Joe Biden's concerned, South Carolina's first.
That's right. That's right.
And that makes at least the presidential primary up in New Hampshire null and void. Doesn't really, they're not going to, I guess they'll let him into the convention, I guess. But they won't have anybody to vote for that's going to matter. I can say that. I don't think you can say that officially.
Well, there are two other candidates that are on the ticket. So
yeah. There's like 20 of them in the New Hampshire ballot. Yeah. Okay. So, we'll talk about who's on the ballot in just a minute. Okay. So we're first in the nation, and we're making it a big deal. Now, on this side of the screen, I think I can say, yeah, Joe Biden is expected to win. And I can say, and I don't think you can, South Carolina is going to vote Republican in November. Probably. This is a wacky year for the Republicans, so who knows, but probably. So why even bother? Why even bother to vote in the Democratic primary? There are 3 candidates that will be on our ballot. Why even bother? And there are some good reasons, and I'm going to let you go through the good reasons why we're making this a big deal. And you can tell us about the big deal that we're making out of it. It is a big deal.
We may not be shaping the November ballot this year, but we very well could be shaping it in 2028.
They made us first in the nation this time, but if we go, ho-hum, I don't really care, they're probably not going to make us first in the nation next time, or at least, our shot at it's not going to be as good.
And you're right. That's why we're making this big push, and we're doing everything that we can to encourage the Democrats to go out and vote during the primaries here, because we need to figure out why it is important. Why should we stay first in the nation? And that's all going to be dependent on the turnout. And so we're doing everything humanly possible to get voters to turn out, through education, through having conversations, through phone banking. We're reaching every avenue possible to encourage and educate Democrats right here in York County and throughout the state the importance of it. Who wouldn't want to be first, Gary? You know, I like being first. So that's one reason why we're doing everything, as I stated before, humanly possible to encourage those to get out and vote. Here in York County, we submitted stuff to the various churches. We've gone to the barbershops. We've gone to the hair salons. We're just going where people are and talking about the primaries, just so, you know, it will encourage people to go out and vote and make a difference. And that's one of the things that we realize in conversation is people are saying, my vote doesn't matter. Well, guess what? It is going to matter if you don't vote, because we know what the outcome is. I just recently took a grant writing class, and the facilitator of the grant writing class stated, guess what? If you submit this grant, you have a 50-50 chance of winning. But if you don't submit the grant at all, guess what your odds are of winning? And your odds are zero.
Yeah.
And we need to take that same look and that same approach when it's time to vote in these upcoming elections. If you don't vote, your chances are zero. It's none.
I can hear the political stump speech coming out of you right now. That's awesome. You had a busy weekend last weekend, and some of that was something about starting a bus tour.
Oh, yes. The first in the nation bus tour came to York County. It was at the longest reigning MLK parade in the state of South Carolina. York, the city of York, has held the MLK parade for the last 42 years. And so it started right here. You know, the first in the nation bus tour started right here in York County. So I can't express enough to the citizens of York County that we have a lot going on, that they chose us. They chose York County to come here to kick off this bus tour. So why not, York County, exercise your right to get out and vote? You know, people are doing things to help encourage us, to boost morale. So, you know, let's go out and show them what we can do on February the 3rd.
And before. And we'll talk about before in just a minute. All right. Yeah. So who's on the ballot?
Who's on the ballot? We have our current reigning president, Joe Biden. And then we have Marianne Williamson. And then we have Congressman Dean Phillips from Minnesota, who are on the ballot for the Democratic ticket here in South Carolina.
And I want to sneak away for just a second and look at the Republican ballot, because I found something interesting over there. This is the Republican ballot. Look at all those names. There's a few folks that have dropped out. Chris Christie has dropped out. Vivek Ramaswamy has dropped out. Donald J. Trump has dropped out. Oh, no, wait, he's still in. He'll be in jail by the time we have the election, though. And a couple of names I don't recognize here at all. But they've also got some advisory questions that we don't get in the Democratic ballot. Should people be given the right to register with a political party of their choice? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Should South Carolina adopt reforms to increase the independence and accountability of the judiciary by improving transparency and reducing conflicts of interest in the process of reviewing judicial qualifications and electing judges? I think there's more behind that than you get from just that sentence. And again, this is just advisory to the Republicans, what the Republicans think that they want to do. Should it be an immediate legislative priority to protect South Carolina's competitiveness and small businesses by changing state law so that a person's responsibility for financial damages in a lawsuit is based on that person's actual share of responsibility? I have no idea why they have those things on the South Carolina ballot. I
don't either, but my spider senses kicked in and said, hey, we better pay attention, because if those are questions that are on the Republican ballot, we need to pay attention and or ask the question why.
You a Spider-Man fan?
A little spider senses.
It's a little tingling in there. So on our ballot, just Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, and Dean Phillips. Who is the YCDP endorsing?
Well, we don't endorse one particular candidate. What we do is we encourage and educate our people on who's on the ticket, so that you can go and research these individuals and see who is the best candidate for what your views and values are. We have done a great job of putting each candidate on a flyer. We have all of them on a flyer together so that you can say who, because once upon a time you used to hear, we don't know who's on the candidate. We don't even know who we're voting for. Hey, we eliminated that for you this time around. So we have submitted and put on flyers the 3 candidates that are up for election during the Democratic primaries.
And we've also got a page on our website that is going to introduce you to all of the candidates up and down the ballot, not just the presidential candidates, because the everybody knows who's running for president. But it's the more local offices, even the state house and state representatives. Those offices are fairly anonymous, and so we'll have that. And we're not going to endorse anybody in the primary, the June primary.
That's correct.
We don't endorse.
Yeah.
Once the primary is over, we will fight like hell to get those people elected.
There you go. There you go.
Let's figure out where we're going to go vote. And a heads up, it's possibly not going to be the polling place that you've been going to election after election. It might have changed. Go ahead.
That's for the presidential preference primary that the locations will change. Only for the presidential primary election.
Yep. I understand they're consolidating the locations to save money.
That is correct. The reasons behind that is to save money. We currently have 101 precincts in York County, but as of February the 3rd, on the actual presidential primary day, only 35 will be open. And so, yes, they have consolidated, which we hope people will go to scvotes.gov to see where their precincts are. We've been getting the word out that the precinct locations will change on that day to encourage people, because we know what'll happen. Somebody will go to where they normally vote at, and they can't go in, and then they're going to go home.
There won't be anybody there.
Yeah, there won't be anybody there, but we're trying to counteract that, Gary. We're really actively putting out the information so that people can be aware to look at this list so that they can know where to go vote, and we don't have any barriers for that on February the 3rd.
Yep. If you go to scvotes.gov, you can put in the information about who you are, your name, address. They'll want to know your birth date and your Social Security, the last 4 digits of your Social Security number, which some people are a little leery about putting that stuff in. I got news for you. The state already knows all of that stuff. They just want to know who you are. And you could put in somebody else's, and you're not going to get any confidential information back. You put that in, and it will give you a ton of information about voting, including where you got to go this time. It'll draw you a Google map of where you got to go to vote this time. So scvotes.gov. It's the place to go. It'll literally draw you a map, and you can see that sample ballot that I showed. You can see a Republican sample ballot if you want. You can also make sure all your voter information is up to date.
That's correct.
You may look at it and say, "Oh my God, I've moved since then," and you can get it corrected. So,
easy peasy.
Okay, so I got a question for you here, Nikita. Are you a registered Democrat or a registered Republican or a registered independent? Are you?
Am I, Gary?
Are you?
Am I?
I'm asking you, are you? It's a gotcha question.
Well, guess what? In the state of South Carolina, voter registration is not done by party. So if you're a registered voter in the state of South Carolina, it means the primaries are open. You can vote in the Democratic primaries, we hope, pray, or you can vote in the Republican primary. But in the state of South Carolina, you are not a registered voter by party. You're just simply that, a registered voter for the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, that was one of those questions we just saw on the Republican ballot as an advisory. Yeah. They think maybe it would be a good idea, and I don't know whether it would be a good idea or a bad idea to have people register by party. But,
yeah. When you vote, you see who votes Republican and who votes Democrat. So you got your numbers there. Why should you have to, be classified as a Republican or a Democrat?
That is interesting. When you go vote in a primary,
that's right,
which ballot you take gets recorded.
That's correct.
They don't know who you voted for.
That's right.
But they know, as a party official, you're interested in this information. You know who in York County took a Democratic and Republican ballot in the last election, the last primary. The general election, you don't know nothing.
Yeah.
All that is totally secret. And again, you don't find out who people voted for, but you find out what party they voted in.
Yeah.
I think, some people can get confused. What's particularly confusing about this one is because we got the two dates. We got February 3rd for the Democrats, 24th for the Republicans, two different dates. People are going to go, well, do I vote in both primaries? You better not.
Better not.
That would be voter fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine if you vote in the Democratic primary and then get confused and show up for the Republican primary, they probably got a record that says, dude, you voted already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably got that. Or considering it's the Republicans, they got the sheriff back there saying, arrest that person. They're trying to vote twice. Donald Trump was right. Am I having too much fun here?
Yeah, just a little tiny bit, but you're okay.
All right. We don't get this way on the website. We don't get hyper political.
Yeah.
But on the podcast, I think we can let our hair down a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so two different dates. Be careful. Decide which one you're going to go to.
Gotcha.
Okay, it's early voting time. Finally, we're going to talk about the early voting. Because there's two different dates, there's two different windows.
Yes,
2 weeks for each one. Tell me about what the windows are.
So for the Democratic primary, the early voting begins this coming Monday, January the 22nd, and will go through February the 2nd. But they will be closed on Sunday, January the 28th. So anyone can go to any of the early voting precincts to vote January the 22nd through February the 2nd. And the time is from 8:30 a.m. until 6 p.m.
And the Republicans get that 2-week window before their early voting. I'm mentioning this because you're going to hear publicity about there's early voting, and you'll go, what? I already voted. Just want to let you know. So their turn is between February 12th and February 22nd. And we get one Saturday for early voting. They get one Saturday for early voting. Ours is closed on the one Sunday that's in the middle. Theirs is also closed on the one Sunday that's in the middle, but also on Monday the 19th and on Friday the 23rd. So they got a few less days to vote than we do. It's one of the few times in South Carolina that the Democrats get a little edge on the Republicans. And I'm pretty sure someone's going to say, well, if anybody lost, it's because we missed those 2 days. Mark my words. Somebody's going to say that.
I'm marking 427 today, Gary.
Okay. Let's figure out where we can go. It's not your precinct, right?
That is correct. Whenever we have early voting, they open up a location that is or should be convenient for everyone in their area to go vote. So we currently have one in the town of York, and you can vote at the York County Government Center. That address is 6 Congress Street in level 1, suite 1201.
Yep. I've been there a few times. That's where I've gone to do my early voting. It's because I like to drive over there, and there's some nice restaurants in York. Yeah. If you go in the building, it's a great big fancy looking modern government building, little imposing, little bit. You go in there and you pretty much walk past the information desk to the elevator bank behind that and go down one floor and then follow the signs. They got some signs. Right. It'll take you. You'll wander around through the basement of the building a little bit, and you'll finally find the voter office.
And if you haven't never been there, it's a great opportunity to go take a look.
Yeah, that's where county council meets. If you ever want to go, to see if something ever comes up again that is controversial in county council, like the library thing last summer. Then that's where the county council meets. So it's good to get to know. Easy to park. They got a big parking lot. No problem. They do. Easy to get to. Where else are we early voting?
Clover has never had an early voting site, and currently Clover does have one. Theirs is going to be at First United Methodist Church, located at 124 Bethel Street in Clover. So yay, Clover, we got you a early voting site for the upcoming election. So that really was momentous, because they've never had a site for early voting. So glad for Clover.
Okay. In Rock Hill, it's going to be at the Baxter Hood Center at York Tech.
That's right.
The address is 375 Anderson Road North. So that's in Rock Hill. And we got one in Fort Mill?
Yeah, we do have one in Fort Mill, and it's located at Carolina's Cornerstone. The address is 1790 Gardendale Road in Fort Mill.
Carolina Cornerstone Church.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing to note is you can go to any of those.
That's correct. So if you live in Fort Mill, but you work in Rock Hill, and it's more convenient for you to vote while you're at work on your lunch, I'm trying to encourage people to go vote during their lunch hour. So if you're on lunch in Rock Hill, you can go vote at the Baxter Hood Center. If you live in Rock Hill and you work in Clover, you can go to the early voting location in Clover, and vice versa for the other early voting sites. So I will say they did make it, convenient in that sense, that you don't have to get off of work and try to run home to your town or city that you live in to vote. They're making it convenient to where you can vote anywhere and your vote still counts.
People might run into some old, very preliminary information about a voting site at the college in Rock Hill.
Winthrop University.
Winthrop. That one was initially listed very early, and then the conflict. So Rock Hill, it's only at the Baxter Center at York Tech. So there was one at Winthrop. You might come into some old information on some website somewhere that still says it, but if you do, that one has been deleted.
Yeah, and as of last week, this past week, Winthrop was a voting site, but just last week we got notification that it is now not.
Yeah. Now,
so things do change.
The town of York is kind of in the middle of the county, but it's the farthest west early voting location. So the folks in the far western part of the county don't have something right in their neighborhood. They got to go at least as far east as York.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not hard to get. There's no traffic out there. It's going to be easy. Let's figure out what you need to bring with you when you go vote in person. As I've observed the political scene for many, many years, this voter ID thing has been a bugaboo. It's been considered to be something designed by Republicans to try to reduce Democratic voting. I was living in North Carolina for those 30 years. It was a big fight. They finally got it through, but it was a big fight. For years and years, they did not have a voter ID requirement. You go to the polls, you tell them who you were. They look you up on their list. They give you the ballot. They put a check mark by your name saying you voted, and you didn't have to show them an ID until the very last time I think that I voted there. South Carolina's had voter ID for a while because Republicans. So you got to bring some kind of ID. What are your options?
Yeah, so when you go, really all you have to do is have a valid South Carolina driver's license or the ID, and you should be able to vote. But other acceptable forms of identification is, of course, your voter registration card with a photo. Unfortunately, I don't have that new card. I just have my old one that's kind of torn up a little bit. You can have a federal military ID, or you can use your U.S. passport.
Or the little passport card, because it's got your picture on it, too. If you don't have a photo ID, but you are registered to vote, then you can get a free photo ID from the county voter registration and elections office. You get that at the DMV. So go to the DMV, and it won't cost you anything because that would be a poll tax.
Yeah.
And we used to have those, but we don't have those anymore.
And I will say there's one other option. Even if you don't have any of those, you can still vote, but it'll be a provisional ballot that you will be casting. And you will have to go back to York to show the correct identification in order for your vote to be counted. And, that's a lot of work. If you live in Rock Hill, then you got to travel back to York to show identification. So we just ask everybody, just take your ID with you when you go so that it covered all. You don't have to be concerned with that.
Yep. There are a lot of details on this and just literally tons of other stuff at that scvotes.gov. It's a good website to go spend a little time perusing what there is about voting. If you are like Nikita and me and you are political junkies, you are what, right? You call yourself a political junkie?
I do.
Yep.
And most people tell me I light up when I start talking about politics.
We will get to know you better in a future show, I think. We don't really have time in this show, but we'll get to know you. But we know that much now. That how could you become the chair of the Democratic Party in your county without being a political junkie?
That's correct. You're right about that.
Pretty much have to be. We're going to talk about absentee voting, and I don't want to quite say absentee voting is a mess, but it ain't easy.
It's not. But I tell people, for those people who are at home, who are immobile, who can't get out, you have an aunt, grandmother, uncle that's in the nursing home, but they're there just because they are not able to do the activities of daily living. They still have a right to vote, and they still have an option. And that option is absentee ballot voting.
Yep. Which almost everywhere else in the country these days they're calling vote by mail.
Yeah.
But we still call it absentee around here. When I lived in North Carolina, anybody throughout the course, they changed things as I was living there for those 30 years. Originally, you needed some excuses, and after a while, they dropped all the excuses. Anybody can vote by mail up in North Carolina. Not down here yet. There's still some limitations. I could almost say you have to go vote in person, but the exceptions are kind of generous. Everybody over 65, so that's me. Way over 65. 65's in the rearview mirror, the dust. Everybody over 65 can vote by mail. No other excuses needed. There's a few other exceptions. Employment, if you can get your boss to say, "I'm sorry, Gary's got to work 60 hours a week, every week and weekends, and no other way that we're going to ever let him get to a poll, but we will let him get to the mailbox once in a while." So, okay. Employment, illness, travel, disabilities, being in the armed service or merchant marine. Those will get you excuses to be able to vote by mail. and scvotes.gov. They got the whole long list. So go take a look at the scvotes.gov/voters/absentee-voting, but it wouldn't be hard to figure it out. Okay, so if you qualify for absentee voting, how do you actually do it? And this is where it gets tough because you can't do it online.
You cannot. You cannot.
I understand that's a state law.
So, how it got passed, I don't know. Maybe there were a lot of people that wasn't paying attention, but yes.
So even if York County said we want to let our folks vote by mail, everybody, they can't do it.
We can't. We won't be able to do it. And that was so convenient for a lot of people on so many different levels. Again, someone who is immobile at home could have gotten a ballot or could have requested a ballot. But, they're making it very difficult now to request these ballots. So,
now the voting itself, that was never going to be online.
No.
But it's getting the ballot is also not online.
That's correct.
Now, online, you can get the forms that you need. You can download the forms.
Yeah. But look at everybody does everything online now. So,
it's dumb. Okay, so you can go online and download a PDF, print it out, mail it back in. And that's just to request that they send you your ballot. And then you get
ballot.
Get that back in the mail.
Yeah.
And then mail that back in. And all that mailing back and forth, our time is short.
Very short and costly because you have to purchase stamps for that. And we know what the mail system is like. So there's no guarantee that it will get there on time.
Yeah. So if you go to our website, it's got the links to download those PDFs. I can't tell you what the addresses are right now. They're 75 characters long. If all of that stuff is too computer intense for you, if you're struggling to watch a YouTube video, you can give them a call. The phone number for the York County Board of Elections is 803-684-1242. 803-684-1242. You're calling them up and saying, I want to vote absentee. Please send me the application form. You get that. You fill it out. You send it back. They send back the actual ballot. Whew.
Don't make it sound so hard.
Well, I mean, we want people to do it if you have to do it. I guess what I'm doing is casting a little shade on the politicians that set it up this way.
Well, yeah, but it's an option. That's all I can say.
and the main thing to think of is if you're watching this anytime, today is
January the 17th.
Yeah, okay. If you're watching this in the next couple of days, you can get a move on this. You don't have very much time. You only got a few days to get all this stuff back and forth. I got a deadline here. Oh, the deadline to make your request is January 23rd.
Yeah.
So that's the latest you can make your request to get the ballot. And then you got to get the ballot in their hands by 7 p.m. on Election Day, February 3rd.
All right.
So if you're going to do it by mail, you know how slow the mail is these days. You want to get that in the mail early. You could carry it in. If you're carrying it in, you got to take it to York, town of York. You might as well vote early anyway, if you're going to be carrying it in. So.
But if I'm voting for my sick granny or sick auntie, that kind of helps. So we're not going to.
Yeah. And you can do this. I'm not an expert on this part of the deal, but you can do this for other people. You can request the ballots. They have to fill out the ballots, and then you can send them back in. But you can't do it en masse. You can only do it for 5 people.
Yeah, up to 5 people.
Yeah. So working on eliminating that voter fraud. Where was I? No, there. Done. We've covered it all. I thought there was going to be more. We've covered it all. However, I think we should say something about strategic primary voting. Can you say anything about that, or do I have to?
I'm going to allow you to say it this.
All right. Strategic primary voting would be. Should I take your face off the screen? Do you want to disavow any knowledge of what I'm about to talk about?
Yeah.
I want to see your reaction. That's all. Strategic primary voting would be for us Democrats to vote in the Republican primary to try to affect who becomes their candidate, or vice versa, Republicans voting in the Democratic primary. I have done this once or twice. Not in South Carolina. Don't come and arrest me. There's nothing illegal about it. I've done this once or twice. And up in New Hampshire, people are doing this like crazy the next week because their Democratic primary is meaningless to them. And so they're going to vote in the Republican primary. This may be of specific interest to folks who have not registered yet, but will get on the ball because they can't, no matter what they do, vote in the Democratic primary. But if they get on the ball and register in the next couple of days, they can still vote in the Republican primary because it's a couple of weeks later. So, okay, you could do that. I'm not telling you should, but I'm telling you that you could. And oh, by the way, if you decide to do that, if you decide for some reason, wild hair, to take a Republican ballot here in the presidential preference primary in February, when you get to the primary for everybody else in June, you can still take a Democratic ballot.
That's correct.
The Republican ballot that you might take in February does not obligate you to take a Republican ballot in June.
That's correct.
Go back to being a Democrat.
Because remember, we don't register by party.
And there's one little thing about taking a ballot at a primary. This will affect what goes on in June. Because for the June elections, if no candidate gets above 50%, there's a runoff. And if you take a Democratic Party ballot in June, on June 11th, I think it was, and there's a runoff, then, and if there happens to be a runoff for both Republicans and Democrats, there'll be a runoff for both parties. You have to take a ballot of the party that you voted at the primary.
That's correct. June primary.
Yeah, the general primary in June. If there's a runoff, that's your only obligation. I had somebody on Facebook ask, if I take a Democratic ballot in June or February, at the general election in November, do I have to vote for that party? And the answer, of course, is absolutely not. You vote in November, all bets are off, vote for whoever you want. Now, you and I look at a question like that and we say, why would anyone even wonder? But most people out there are not that deep into this.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to call that normal and we're weird, or sad and, we're just a little more on the ball. I guess I'm not going to make that judgment, but we do have to realize most people are they're just not that into this stuff.
Yeah, and that's because there are various reasons for them not being, but most people, either you're going to vote Democrat or you're going to vote Republican. Nobody thinks about this strategic, planning game that's going on, except for the people who has an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
So,
like I did once in a while.
So, the most people just want to elect somebody who's going to have their best interest at heart. But then that's a lot what I've been finding out out here educating people about, all the little strategic, little small things that means a whole lot in what goes on in our political process in the political world that may seem minute to others, but it's really, really huge. It really tilts the needle. And
this idea about my vote doesn't count, it's just one vote. All those votes aggregated together started out as just one vote.
That's right.
Everybody started out as just one vote. And if too many people have the idea of, well, we like to to pick those races that were won by 10, 20, 30 votes out of thousands and thousands, and say, look at that. That could have been your vote. But the only way we get to thousands of votes is everybody gets out there and votes. So
that's right.
If you need a refresher on what we've been talking about, then go to our website. Which one of those addresses is your favorite?
With me, personally, YorkCountyDemocraticParty.org.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the .org.
Yeah. YorkCountyDemocraticParty.org. A lot of typing. If you're doing it on your phone, the kids, they can do it with their thumbs. I've never figured out how to do that. Are you a thumb dialer?
I'm not. I'm a one finger person.
Yeah, me too. That's a lot on a phone. On a computer, it's not too bad. If you're doing it on the phone, YCDP.us, not .com, not .org, .us, United States, or as Donald Trump said at one of his rallies, U.S., us, United States, us. I just realized that. I don't do a good Donald Trump. I got to work on my impression of Donald Trump.
But the one thing about it, if you type it in once, you don't have to type all of it in again.
Your phone remembers.
There you go.
Yeah. And the official one, the old one, the one we've had for years and years, YorkSCDems.org. That's what it had been. It still works. That's what your browser will display no matter how you get to it. Okay, so that is it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, because we're a podcast now. We're an official audio podcast. Have you got the audio podcast on your phone yet?
Not yet. I've been doing so much other stuff.
We're keeping you busy as chair.
A little tiny bit. I have to leave here and go to a meeting here pretty shortly. So I can't download the podcast while I'm driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you iPhone or Android?
Oh, I'm an iPhone user.
Yeah, most people are. Yeah. So whatever your iPhone app is, put in YCDP-TV and you'll find it in your podcast app. The YCDP Media Empire, that was me taking a week off to go skiing next week. So we won't be doing another show until sometime in February, just as all this stuff has happened. So y'all go vote. We need to do a get to know Nikita show, I think.
Gary, I feel like that's coming here pretty soon.
Yep. Early in February sometime. If people do want to see a little bit more from you, you've done a couple of interviews.
I have.
You did one with WRHI.
Yes.
And you did one with CN2.
That is correct.
They're not extensive. They're not hours long like we'll probably do, but they'll get an idea of what you talk like and what you look like and stuff. So to find them, guess where you can go?
Where, Gary?
Our website, and we have a little section called YCDP in the news. So our website's got everything.
It does.
It'll do your laundry for you.
I don't know about that, but it will be fine. I was really impressed with the way our website looks now.
Me too, because I did it. I wasn't going to take that much credit for it, but here we are. I wrested control of the website away from where it was telling people to vote for Joe Cunningham for governor, and because I know how to do those things, and I'm glad to do them. We're done. Say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you guys for listening, and see you at the polls.
See you at the polls. Over and out.